Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to be explaining my autistic special interest to my girlfriend. I decided to record it because, yeah, it'd make funny content. Anyway, enjoy and don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps me with the algorithm. Thank you. Enjoy. And we're live. Let's go.
Let's go make sure it's recording correctly.
I did. All right, here we
Yay.
go. Elder Scrolls Lore by Bungie. All right, step one. In the beginning. In the beginning. In the
In
start,
the beginning.
there was nothing. There was a creator being that had two halves, Anu and Padme. Anu is order, Padme is chaos. These names aren't really important, they're just there. Both require the other to exist. It's kind of like a yin and yang situation. Padme has someone called Sithis. Anu causes the rest of the gods. And where Padme and Anu intertwine, it causes something called the Orbis, which is reality. So
Okay.
this is a god that's really important. His name is Lorcan slash Shore. To the Nords, he's Shore because that's what they call him. To everyone else, he's called Lorcan. Um, this is the Nordic depiction over here. He's fox.
Mhm.
It's a totem deity. So then, what makes an Aedra and a Daedra? These are the two subclasses of gods. So, like I said, it being called Lorcan asks the gods to contribute to creating reality. Actually, Nern, which is the name of the planet and everything like that. Because he thought existence was pretty boring without anyone else to kind of bounce it off of or have people do. So, some of them agreed to help with it, and those are called the Aedra, and some of them didn't want to help with it, and those are called the Daedra. Now, there's a little bit of a weird thing where it's split between humans and elves on the idea at this beginning. So the elves think that Lorcan tricked the Aedra into helping him create the world, whereas the men think that the Aedra willingly went along and helped him create. Personally, because they kept and continued and made the world, it makes me think that they agreed to it, and I think the elves are full of shit. That's just because I don't like elves. So here's the planet,
Okay.
right? So here's Tamriel. This is where all the Elder
It's
Scrolls
pretty.
games take place. Yeah. Here's Atmora, and then here is Akavir, here in the east. And there's Yakuta, Altmeris, the Somerset Isles, all that fun stuff. So I might come back to this slide frequently.
Okay. It's
I,
all going very fast. So
I'm just going so I can stop me if you have any questions. All right, so here's all the gods of the Elder Scrolls. The Daedra are the Aedra over here and the Daedra over here. And so I mean, don't worry, I'll go more in depth with them because I've made individual slides for them. So first off,
okay.
we're going to start with the Aedra, which Aedra translates into our ancestors, and then the Daedra translates into not our ancestors, because the elves believe that they are descended from the gods, basically, whereas men think that they're two separate things. So here's Aedra, Akatosh, Ariel, or Olduin. So Ariel is the elvish version of him. Akatosh is the man version, and Alduin is the Nordic version. He is the dragon god of time. He controls time. He's the chief deity in the Nine Divines religion. Then there's Arche slash Orki. Orki is the Nordic version. Arche is the god of death and life, the cycle, healing, medicine, things like that. Just like, everything related to living and dying. Sabella is the goddess of beauty. She is a purely Nordic being that was added into the Nine Divines. Feminine beauty, as well as the beauty of nature, things like that. Julianos is the god of magic and math and stuff like that. That's why he likes his pyramids. Um, he's a big smart
Triangle.
guy. So there we go. That's Julianos.
He likes
Inner,
triangles.
exactly. He's all about triangles, which are the strongest geologic, or not geologic, metric shape. In fact, that's why bridges
He,
have a ton of triangles in them. So Kinnereth and Kine, this is the Nordic patron goddess. They believe that she created them by breathing them out onto a mountain called the Throat of the World in Skyrim. And she's in charge of the wind and nature and stuff like that. Mara is the goddess of marriage and fertility and basically all that good stuff, that feminine good stuff. That's what she's in charge of. Excuse me. Stentar
mhm.
Stoon is in charge of commerce. He's about basically, are you strong? Do you do you sell things well? At least I think. Hold on. Yeah, I think that's him. I get him and Zenithar mixed up, so we'll get to him soon.
And there's
So
sand in his cup.
yeah, it's gold basically. It's wealth. He's basically
It's
showing if
gold.
you're a good merchant, if you're a good person, I'm pouring out wealth for you. If you're a good person, and
Yeah.
Stoon is kind of similar. He's the god of mercy as well. Stoon is also that might be okay. I'm getting the two mixed up. I'm very sorry. I'm very messed up with these two. So he's the god of mercy, and The weird way the Nords understood mercy, which is his name Stune in the Nordic pantheon, is that he was the god of ransom and of keeping prisoners. Because Nords would just kill anybody they fought until he came along and said, "Hey, if we take prisoners, we can leverage those." So that's how they worship him. So this is Talos, or what I think he could also be Lorcan. Talos is a very important figure that we'll get into later, but he's the hero god of mankind. Mankind really likes him. He was the first emperor way back in, not the first emperor, he was the first emperor of the Second Empire, and he was so good of an emperor that he ascended to godhood. The idea.
Like Kratos, but different. Yes.
Yeah, except without all the backstory and the boy. So this is
Yeah,
Zenithar. This is the one of trade. Um, the Nords, I don't, at least as far as I can remember, they don't really have a Zenithar because trading's neat and all, but kind of prefer killing people. But he's all about trade. That's why he has a golden anvil, basically saying, he's the god of blacksmiths and trade workers and people who sell their craft. He's like, if you do a good job, you'll get rewarded. So here's Azura. These are into the Daedra. So Azura is not someone who helped build the world, but she's the queen of dawn and dusk, and she's in charge of basically. She's a dark elf deity, which we'll get into in a second. But she's in charge
Sun
of the
and Moon.
sun and the moon. Yep,
Yeah.
and very pretty, very like a nice Daedra is what I would say.
Mhm.
Is that like a Daedra that doesn't want to hurt you? Next up, we have Boethia, who is a Daedra that definitely wants to hurt you. This is the Daedric god
Looks
of
like it.
warfare, plots, murder, stuff like that. The Dark Elves also worship this one because they believe it's how they can maintain their government, is by assassinating key members of it to keep the things in line. Actually, their guild for assassinating people is called the Morag Tong, and Morag Tong translates to Forester's Guild, basically meaning if one of the trees goes too high and blocks the sunlight, you chop it down so the rest of the forest can grow. Kind of some interesting symbology there. Clavicus Vile is also one who's going to try to screw you over. He's basically the god of bad deals. If you're incredibly desperate, you want to go to Clavicus Vile. Other than that, there's no reason to really mess with him. He has his dog Barbus there, which is another part of himself. He's usually depicted as being very young, very naive, and he likes striking deals that end up fucking over the person who makes the deal. I'm sure it's been past a minute, so Susan, don't worry about that f bomb. All right, then we have Hermaeus
How's
Mora.
dog?
Oh,
How's the dog part of it?
because the dog is another aspect of his manifestation. These aren't actually what they look like. This is just how they appear to mortals when you look at them. So I'll go back, I think. Yeah. So Barbus, which is the dog, is a part of him. It's his good natured part, whereas the guy, the satyr kind of looking guy, is a bad part because he wants to kill this.
Yeah. So yeah, but does he actually turn into the dog? Does he control the dog?
No, they're two separate kind of. It's like a yin and yang situation where you have one who makes the chaotic bad deals, the other one who's like, "You really want to go for that deal? Are you that desperate?" One of them's nice, one of them's not nice, but they're the
So the
same.
dog can talk.
Yes, the dog can talk.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know any of this.
Yeah, that's fair. The dog can talk.
That's what I meant. Maybe you should go a little slower and explain it all very detailed. But because it
Well,
was
these
really
things all
fast.
link back on each other. Don't worry, we can revisit these eventually.
Probably yes. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah,
So you can't see these. They actually don't look like this,
kind
or
of.
they do look like. Is it kind of like the Bloodborne things of like you have to have a certain amount of smarty pants to be able to see them?
Sort of, but it's not necessarily that. No matter how smart you are, you'll never be able to grasp them in their entirety. Because these are like, your brain doesn't have the software to look at them properly.
Yeah, but it's kind of like there where there's like those things are on the map, but you can't see them till like halfway the game where you have gained a certain ability.
Sort of. They don't live in the mortal plane on the continents. They live in a basic. They're kind of aliens. If the way to think about it is they live outside of Nern and time and stuff like that, and they sometimes pop in and do crazy stuff, and sometimes they don't.
But when they pop in, can everybody see them?
Yes, they look like this to them.
Okay, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Persine, god of the hunt and god of werewolves.
Nice
Um,
ones.
I know, right? So he has a deer thing on his head wears a deer pelt on his head to, or a deer skull sometimes in some depictions, and he's the god of hunting, of primal stuff like that. That's what he's all about. Um, so he's pretty popular with the wood elves, which we'll get to eventually. Jigalag slash Sheogorath. These are two opposite beings of madness, is what I like to call it. Sheogorath is your stereotypical madness, where he's all about like, you'll have a conversation with him, and all of a sudden he's like cheese, and then cheese will rain from the sky, and you're like, why? And he's like, because it was funny, and I'm crazy, I'm
I wish
quirky
I
like
could
that.
do that.
Yeah, so
Like,
he's crazy like that.
oh,
Jigalag is
jeez.
about perfect order. He's like the complete opposite. He's typically symbolized by crystals in their kind of fractal mathematical perfection. Um, he's basically like everything just needs to not happen ever. I'm completely ordered. I've got all my ducks in a row. I've fossilized my ducks, even you could say. And these two are the same being, but the other Daedra didn't like how powerful Order guy over here was, so they basically cursed him with madness, so he turns into Sheogorath as well. So these are the two. These are the same being. They have two different names though. Kind of like Marika
Is it a
Radagon if
robot?
we get Dark Souls. He is not a ro- He was not a robot. That's just how he is depicted. That's just how he
But
likes to
is
show
there
himself.
but is there something in the suit?
I don't know. He could be crystal all the way through. He could be like a
Okay.
crystal person. Yeah, I'm not
He
too
just
sure.
seems like he had a really thin waist if there was a person inside.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a person in there. This guy could be in there. I don't know. But Daedric princes just do whatever they want to. And that's what these groups are. This is a Daedric prince.
Yes.
Here is Malakath and Trinimac. These are also the same one. Fun story. If you remember Boethia from earlier, which was this one, um, there was a group of elves who wanted to leave the Somerset Isles and go worship the Daedra. And they weren't very happy about that. They were called the Chimer. And Trinimac, which is the guy over here, was Auriel slash Akatosh's greatest knight, and he tried to fight them to keep them from leaving the Isles and to stop worshiping and just keep them from worshiping the Daedra. But Boethia didn't like that, and so she slew Trinimac and then ate his body and then unironically shit him out, and he became Malakath, the god of orcs. And the people who worship Trinimac, upon seeing their god get literally shit out by another god, rubbed themselves with the fecal matter and became orcs. So that's where orcs come from in the Elder Scrolls. So there you go. Um, they were once a type of elf, but then they covered themselves in dookie. Godly
Eh,
dookie. So there you go.
God Dookie.
Now,
So it's a little bit like the Godskin duo in Elden Ring, but like skin Dookie instead of skin.
he's still like he just got poo pooed out and he looks all freaky, but he's the god of curses and the orcs. So that's what he does. We have Mehrunes Dagon, another Daedric guy. He's the god of chaos and destruction and changing the order. Um, and he's all about basically chaos and overthrowing dynasties and upheaving society and the little man, stuff like that. Um, and basically, he is all about just destroying things. Um, that's what he does. He's that rebellious streak when you're a teenager. That's Mehrunes Dagon.
Yeah. Also, he kind of looks like he was in the Baldur's Gate.
Yep. Now we have Mafala, which is the web spinner, the plotter. She's the Daedric prince, or he, or they don't really have a set gender. But with you, sometimes a
It
guy,
seems
sometimes
like
a
it has
girl.
boobs.
Right. That's just how they like to manifest themselves. But that's not what they really are, or what they really would be. They are agendered
Mhm.
because they aren't, part of a race.
Yeah, they're
They're a
too
god.
godlike. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really have a gender. But Mafala is the web spinner, the plotter, also the goddess of sex, secret murders, lies, and plots. Um, Basically, all the negative aspects of femininity. Um, but the Dark Elves also worship her because she helps them keep their society contingent, basically allowing them to plot to take down their enemies or plot down to take down, their rivals in society, teaching them how to have sex too. Which is a really funny thing because that implies that the other elves don't know how to have sex. So I like that little bit of lore.
Then how are they making more?
I think they do. I just like the head canon that they don't because it's funny.
They must be able to.
Yep. So here's Meridia. She's also a Daedra. but not like the other Daedras where it's more demonic looking. She's more angelic. And that is because she is basically the goddess of harsh, powerful light. Like you know how sunlight sometimes can be very nice to sit in, but it can also burn you, right? That's Meridia. She's very much like, I hate undead, I hate vampires, I hate everything to do with all that stuff. Um, Here's my sword, go kill people who are bad because they're undead. Whereas there are
Yeah.
good vampires, and stuff like that. But she's like, no, all of them are bad. I hate undead. Kill them all. That's what she's about. Basically, light, um, stuff like that. Oh yeah, Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince of
Good.
if you know, you know. But he's also the Daedric Prince of vampires, necromancy, and bondage, and enslavement, and domination. That's this guy. He likes basically he likes torturing people. He likes enslaving their souls. He likes making vampires. And the way vampires came about in the Elder Scrolls was there was once a priestess of Arche. If you remember, that was the guy in charge of life, death. He said, "I really don't like this Arche guy. I'm going to get one over on him." And he basically, yeah, he did that to her, and then she died, and then she came back as a vampire. So I can't say exactly what it is he does because it's a very demonetizable word, but he's not a good guy at all. And people really don't like him. Now, if you're a power hungry, creepy vampire, he's probably your best guy to talk to. But either way, not a good
You
guy.
really like Twilight. It's a
Yes.
very cool guy.
No, he's not a cool guy at all.
Only if you like Twilight.
I mean, even if maybe I don't know if there was any scenes about that in Twilight, but yes. So that's Molag Bal. Nobody likes
I
him.
don't know.
He has a mace, and he hits people with the mace sometimes, and he enslaves you. Next is Namira. This is the goddess
I
of
mean,
rot, bugs,
some people are
nastiness,
into that.
consensual non-consent, I suppose. So Namira, goddess of rot, decay, nasty things. There's a story about a guy who followed her around and asked to be made more powerful by her. He said, "Fine, I'm gonna make it so that when anyone looks at you, they get absolutely they get revolted. They hate you. They think you're disgusting." And he was able to. He hated it at first, but then when he was a beggar, he was able to learn information, secret things, stuff like that. So basically, she's all about the disgusting things we don't like. That's Namira.
Yeah, yeah.
Nocturnal is the goddess of shadows and secrets, um, kind of secrets, just mostly about sneaking and thievery. Because a lot of thieves will will pray, not play, pray to Nocturnal, and it's less of a prayer. It's more of the it's kind of like, I'll leave you some of the treasure I get if you help me be more sneaky. It's very contractual. She doesn't want to be really worshipped, I suppose. More of like a business contract, if that makes sense. Then Periite, which is my fave because he's a big green dragon. He's the god of this is another Daedra. We're still on the Daedra. Um, Basically a god of just like rot. If that not rot necessarily, but pestilence. Um, Kind of like the
Scarlet Moths.
not necessarily, but more like it's the natural order of decay in life, right? Where you have to sometime the moss has to eat away at the tree, you know. The sometimes the rainfall causes the tree to collapse, right? Like it's the idea of like a natural order to things decaying and giving new life. So that's and he's a big green dragon, so I also like that.
Yeah. Death giving space to new life.
Yep. Then there's Sanguine, who's also another fun one. This is the one of drinking and partying and just rampant sex. He's the party god, basically. That
Also looks like he could have been in Baldur's Gate.
oh yeah. No, well you see, Elder Scrolls was originally a D&D campaign. Um,
Yeah.
but Sanguine is the god of basically get fucked up and have a good time. That's what he does. Vermina is the
He's
goddess of dreams. Oh, go for it. Sorry.
that makes sense. No, I was just gonna say yes, but interesting.
Yep, Vermina is the goddess of dreams. You give her your dreams, and she gives you nightmares. And for some reason, this works out, and some people really like it. But that's Vermina, so I don't get it personally. But hey, that's that. You do you, boo boo. And then here we go. So we're splitting it up into two,
Um,
man and mer. So man is all the races that are connected to being a man, and mer have pointy ears. And I already explained this earlier, where men believe the gods created them, and mer believe they are descended from the gods. Mer think that the world is a prison, and they need to escape it by retracing their steps to becoming a divinity again, whereas humans believe that they should just enjoy their time, and they'll go to their own
yeah.
afterlife afterwards. I like the men a lot more. So
Yeah.
here's elves. This is what they look like. And here's humans, specifically high elves and Nords. Now, after Lorcan supposedly tricked them, they believe that Auriel and his knight Trinimac fought and killed Lorcan. Basically, all this is saying is that when they killed him, they tried to rip out his heart and destroy it, and he's basically laughed at them and said, "This heart is the heart of the world, for one was made to satisfy the other." Basically, meaning you can't kill me as long as existence exists, and you can't unmake existence, you goob. Um, and so,
YouTuber.
exactly, you goofball, you goofy little elf man. Um, and the Nords fought with Lorcan. The races of man fought with Lorcan, and the races of elves fought with Auriel. Auriel won. Men retreated to the north, to Atmora, and the elves retreated to the south to a place called Eldmaris, and that's where they kind of were at the beginning of time. Um, and so what happened was Auriel got on top of a tower he made, shot his bow with the heart of Lorcan attached to it, and it flew across Tamriel. Part of the blood of the heart fell into a ravine in Cyrodiil, which is in the center of the continent, made a red gem that will come up later. And the heart itself landed in a mountain, or created a mountain around it. It's not really too sure. That is Red Mountain later on in Morrowind, which will also come up later.
Okay.
Here are your different types of elves. These are high elves, these are wood elves, and these are dark elves. This is high elf architecture.
The the
Oh,
bottom one kind of looked like uh, the guy that played Morbius. What was his name?
he's Morbin.
What was his name again?
Oh,
He's also in a band.
yeah, and
It's
he
like
had like a
Seconds to
cult.
Mars. I mean, allegedly, I'm not completely sure if that's true or not, but I've
Right,
heard so.
allegedly. No one. I don't need no lawyers on me. But
Like, I don't
yeah,
know if it's actually true, but people say so, and there's evidence to believe so. Jared Leto, that's what
that's
it
it.
was.
Yeah.
He looks like Jared Leto.
So there's the Jared Leto race, the Tree Hugger race.
What race is that?
This is the Dark Elves. So Dark Elf or Dunmer, Wood
It's a
Elf
Jared Leto is a dark elf.
or Bosmer, or High Elf or Altmer. This is High Elf architecture. Very A lot of eagle designs. They love their eagles. A lot of high rises, white
They have good taste.
stone, very beautiful. That's their style. Think kind of like a mix between like normal crafting, and then you've also got like the elves from Lord of the Rings.
It's like Disney-esque, but like more woody.
Yeah. Here's wood elves. They don't really, I call it architecture in quotes because it's not necessarily architecture as much
It's
as it
just more
is
woody.
like,
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's very pretty. That it's very nature.
very much like they grow their buildings because they're very much more in tune with nature.
I wish
They
I could do
are
that.
forbidden from cutting down trees by a pact they made with the forest, and they can only eat meat, which leads to some kind of issues where they are
Only.
known to engage in cannibalism of their enemies because they are not allowed to eat meat, like plants or stuff like that.
That's interesting because I thought they would be vegan instead, but
No, because they can't hurt the trees. They have a specific pact with the trees or like with
yeah,
plants. So they prefer cannibalism or eating a lot of meats. A very protein based diet. Um, they are allowed
that's
to eat
interesting.
food that is not from um, their land called Valenwood, as long as it's not in the Valenwood when they eat it, or if it's not from the Valenwood more specifically, then they can use it. They're also known for their bowmanship, being really good with bows, and that's because it's kind of it's a funny thing because, like I said, they can't chop down trees. So how do they make a bow? Well, a lot of the times they'll. I think I've heard they've made it from antlers, or they've made it from
Like
wood
bones of
found.
the enemy.
Yeah, that too, or just wood found outside of their province, the Valenwood. So That's the Wood Elves.